Our guest this week is Margriet Hogue of the Exemplar, and our sponsor is the Embroiderers Guild of America at egausa.org. Each month, EGA offers an expansive roster of creative and educational opportunities for needleworkers around the globe. This year, EGA has launched a new initiative to extend access to their virtual lectures. EGA members can now watch recorded sessions of a select group of previous virtual lectures on the EGA website. If you missed Kathy Andrews' educational lecture on Elizabethan embroidery and the Trevelyan Miscellany of 1608, or A Journey into Tibet's Sacred Textile Art with Leslie Rinchin-Wamgo, both lectures can now be accessed for just $5 and an EGA membership. Recorded lectures are available for a limited time, so don't wait to watch one you might have missed. Learn more at egausa.org. And now, our conversation with Margriet Hogue of the Exemplar. Welcome back. I'm Gary Parr.
And I'm Beth Ellicott.
And you're listening to Fiber Talk, the twice-weekly podcast for needlework artists. Our artist this week from the Exemplar, Margriet Hogue. Margriet, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we have so many questions. All right, we're blaming this all on Margriet Hagen.
Absolutely.
Yep.
She cost us money.
I'll have to watch that one.
Yeah, well, she's done two Wednesday night shows with us.
Okay.
And, I knew about you, but had not really spent much time. And then after she showed her samplers that night, it cost me money that night. Well, it's cost both of us money, I think, both shows, hasn't it, Beth?
Yes, it has. And it's like, and I've got to stop scrolling through your website because I'm making lists now. It's like I can stitch 24/7, right? And get these all done.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's it, isn't it? You got to stitch them.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, my first order was a list, and then I stopped myself and said, "All right, you can buy 3. You're not, but yeah."
Well, you did very well.
I was pushing. Well, I was up to 10. I had 10. No, stop it.
Well, they'll be around for a while, so.
Yeah. Well, good. And then we did another one with Margaret, and then now we bought more. So they're in the mail somewhere from Canada.
Yep, they're on the way.
who knows where? Between the Canadian Postal and the U.S. Postal, who knows where?
Oh, I know. It's pretty awful these days. Things are so slow.
Yeah. So how did this whole business start? Where did you get your sampler interest from?
Well, I have a sampler that was actually from my mom's side of the family. That's from the 1800s. And she, was always hanging in the living room. So it's sort of, I think, rubbed off by osmosis. And then I came across the Scarlet Letter, actually. And there was I used to get Country Living magazine, and there was an article in there about her. And so I ordered one of her kits. And then I also used to have a subscription to a Dutch magazine, and they had some samplers in there with charts. So I started stitching those. And I ordered the one from the Scarlet Letter, and I started it, but I've never finished it. And then when we went on holidays, I thought to myself, I can do this. And so when we'd go on holidays, I'd, make appointments with museums and that, and then ask for permission to reproduce them. And that sort of grown from there. And then I think I might have had about eight samplers at one point, and I sent pictures of them to Country Living magazine because they had in the front they always had new things that were available, and they actually featured them in there, and that sort of was the beginning of all of it. It just sort of took off from there.
Uh-oh.
It was a good magazine to have them in. It was.
Yeah.
So and that's sort of it's grown from that, and I keep adding new samplers to it, and I've done a few of my own designs, and I initially I was always trying to I was trying to get samplers from various countries and that had sampler tradition, and I think I've been fairly successful with that. That I've got quite a few from different countries.
Yeah.
And I mean, I am Dutch by origin. I was born there, and so those are still generally my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Back to the roots. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been actually doing a lot of research on one of the orphanages in Amsterdam, and they have real specific samplers. So I've got quite a collection of those, and eventually I hope to write a book, but who knows when that'll happen.
Yeah.
That might be a while.
In your spare time.
Yeah, right.
Now, did you start doing this as just simply stitching, and then when did you start reproducing? Was that hand in hand, or did that come later?
No. My mom taught me to stitch initially, and then I was doing all different kinds of stitching, freehand stuff like on stamped linen, and needlepoint with the wool, the tent stitch stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then I didn't actually start stitching a sampler until I came across one in a magazine and did that. And it's just, one thing led to another.
What is it appeal? Do you have a fascination for history and that's what appeals, or is it just you just enjoy doing samplers?
It's the history that goes with it. Yeah, and and it's the fact that little girls used to do these things, and when I see some of these samplers done by 8-year-olds, I'm just blown away sometimes at how good they were. And then there are others that you can tell they probably hated every minute of it because they're so messy.
Yeah. No, I think that's the one thing about samplers, especially some of these that you have. Kids 10 years old, even younger, doing that level of sophistication, stuff that makes most of us nervous today is just. I mean, I don't care how much supervision they had, and I'm sure they had some supervision and some help. Still, to execute that stuff is just.
Oh, I know, especially some of the freehand stuff. I mean, you can, when you look at some of the old samplers, you can tell there's drawings underneath it. And so it was always drawn onto the linen. And, good question is, did the teacher draw that on, or did the student do that?
Yeah.
It's hard to say sometimes. But, some of them, like especially the Balch samplers, they have a lot of similarities. And I would think the teacher drew that stuff on.
Yeah. There's a teacher prep. I've got 10 girls, and I got to draw designs on linen for 10 of them before we start class. Oh, yuck.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that was the same with like the 17th century English, like the caskets and things. Those are all stamped on there or drawn on there on the fabric before the girls ever got them. They were actually like kits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the stitches are, some of those stitches are pretty incredible.
Yeah. Well, that's the part I think, and I think it's the same for Beth, that just, these are not your normal cross stitch samplers. I mean, the majority of what you have, I mean, there's some pretty sophisticated stitching in here. Is that something you seek out, or is it you just look for samplers you like and let them be what they are?
I look for samplers that I like and that speak to me, and like with the 17th century ones, I do look for the variety of stitches that were used in them. But they have to appeal to me as well, like both design-wise and color-wise.
Yeah.
So. And, there are times when I think, I'm good. I would love to reproduce it. And I have all kinds of photos. And then I just really start studying it. And I'm thinking, I don't think I want to attempt this. I just don't want to do it. This is going to take way too much time.
Right. Because it's got to take more time to do the different stitches chart it out for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And it does take time. And I mean, I've even got some that I've started charting, and then I think, oh no, I don't. This is going to take way too long just to chart, because sometimes most of the time I'm working from photos, and it's there's color shifts in there, and it's really, really hard to differentiate between each stitch sometimes. So I thought, nah, that one's not happening.
So, all right. So I wondered about that. If you have some that just are sitting in a pile that there's just no way, are there some that you're just determined to do, but they're just taking a lot of work?
There's a couple that are sitting in a pile.
Okay.
And then there are a few that I'm thinking, yeah, I need to get back at these and just keep working at it to chart it out.
Yeah.
And but we'll see when that happens also.
Right.
I'm finding like I'm having real bad shoulder issues with my charting hand. So I've been doing a lot of charting with my left hand, but it's all this repetitive movement that is, not good.
No.
And I'm hardly stitch anymore.
Oh, that's too bad.
Because it hurts.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to watch how much you do.
Yeah. The thing that amazes me is like the one I keep referring to is Beth and I both have it. Jane Turner, 1668. Holy smokes, that thing is just mind blowing. The sophistication that is in that thing, the stitches, and when you're doing something of that level of difficulty and sophistication, is figuring out the stitches from the original. That's got to be really tough.
Well, no, with some of those, especially some of the band samplers, I've been able to see the back of the samplers, so that really you can really helps you figure out what the stitches are. And I have take really, really close up photos of some of those areas too, and that I can figure out from that what's going on.
So you travel to see the samplers, then you travel to the museums?
I used to do a lot of it, yeah, and then I'd make a point. If I knew they had a good sampler collection, I would make appointments to see them, and they were always really good. And they bring them out, and I would be able to study them and take photos both of the front and the back, and lots of notes. And it was always a great way to travel. and I could write it off.
Right.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, I've loved doing that. There was, like, I think one of the earlier trips I did was to Switzerland and to the St. Gallen Museum, and they have a fabulous collection of samplers, especially band samplers. And I was in there for forever, just taking lots and lots of photos of both the front and the back. And I find it's always really interesting too how different the colors on the back are from the front. Like, they fade over time.
Yeah.
Back then, the dyeing, a lot of it would have been natural dyes, I think, but I'm not positive on that. But they tend to fade more than the chemical dyed ones that we have now.
Yeah. Take us through that process. You contact a museum and, can I see do you ask for specific samplers, or do you? If I,
like with the St. Gallen Museum, they published a book with all their samplers years ago. And so there was images of all the samplers. So I picked the ones that I really wanted to see. And they brought those out. And then, I write to the museum, to the curator, and they bring, and make an appointment. And, then they bring them out, and I can just study them to my heart's content.
Are you generally supervised through the whole thing, or do they just put you in a room and let you have at it?
No, there's usually somebody there.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't want to leave you alone.
Yeah.
They don't want you really touching them. Like, you have to wear white gloves and everything.
Okay.
And in some of the cases, the curator is the one that has to flip it over.
Oh, Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear you say that about the back, because for me, whenever I see anyone stitching, and so many people will get touchy about the back side, I love to look at the back side because it shows me how they went about it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love to study the back. I don't care if it's messy or neat. I just think it's interesting, especially talented stitchers, to see how did you do this, and how did you get from point A to point B without it making a mess on the front. Yeah,
Right. Well, the thing with the early ones, like the 17th century ones, a lot of them are reversible, and so you don't see any ends. They're all a lot of them are finished on the front, like they'll run them underneath stitches on the front, and you don't see that. Later on, God, some of them look like dog's breakfast on the back. They're terrible. There'll be a really, really long thread from somewhere at the top that goes like 4 or 5 inches down and starts over again. Just huge mess.
She didn't care.
No,
she didn't care. She was like, she's trying to get done. Let's go out and play. Why am I doing this?
Yeah. But I can't always see the back of the sampler, but whenever possible, I will match the colors on the back to the front.
Okay.
I don't like these faded looking things because that's not how they were.
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Yes. Because you think of them, they're little girls. What do little girls like? They like bright colors. Yes.
Exactly.
As many as they can get their hands on, too, generally.
True. Very true. Yeah. So, and I know like it's a lot of the pinky salmony colors that have really, really faded. But when you see them on the back, they're just gorgeous, the colors. So I just, it's not always possible, but whenever I can, I reproduce it to the back.
Yeah. What is that experience like in the room because it seems to me like you're in there looking at a sampler and there's a person there who I'm sure has 1,000 better things to do, or at least a list of things that need to get done. And they're sitting there with you. Do you feel pressure? Do you just take a bunch of pictures and make a few notes and then go back where you can be alone and thoroughly study? Or are they quite comfortable with you just taking your sweet time looking at these things?
Oh, they're quite comfortable generally with me taking time. It's not always the curator. It could be an assistant that's there. Like I know at Winterthur, they would sometimes have a curator there, like Linda Eaton would be there quite often. But then other times, it would be one of the students, like they have students, or I don't know that students is the right word, but they would have people that were working there or studying there that would be in the room with me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do take a lot of pictures and lots of notes, and it's time consuming.
Yeah.
But they never seem to mind, or they never let on.
Yeah, well, that's impressive right there. I would feel pressure to get done and get out of there so they could get on with their day. But
no, I think that's part of their job.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
So in some of these, Jane Turner, 1668. That is just ancient. So the got to be incredibly delicate. I'm sure that you don't get to touch them hardly at all, if any.
No.
But is it fairly easy to decipher most of the stitches if you can see both sides, or?
Oh yeah.
With experience, you're just better at it.
Yeah, I know my stitches by now, but although every once in a while there'll be one, and I really have to puzzle it over, and then seeing the front and the back. And real close-ups, you can sort of see how the stitch went and what goes over and what goes under. And but it's I love seeing those different stitches.
Yeah,
it's just made them more interesting. And I think the girls, especially in the 1700s and 1600s, it would have been it was part of their schooling. It was only the wealthy girls that did them. And so I think they they were in some kind of school or had some kind of a tutor that would teach them how to do these things.
Have you come across stitches you just couldn't figure out or that you'd never seen before?
Oh,
apparently not. Wow.
Sometimes I'm guessing.
Oh,
but
okay.
I think most of the time I've been able to figure them out. Yeah, no. And I was fortunate to own a few samplers from that time period.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you can really, really study them because, you can touch them.
Right. Yeah. Are most of those done on fairly high count linens? I assume with silk.
They were all done with silk pretty much, except for if there was cut work involved. They would have used linen thread for that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were pretty much all stitched over 3 threads of linen instead of 2.
Oh.
Yeah, and then partially I think that's because it was such a higher count. Like, it wasn't unusual that they stitched on 70 count linen. I know.
And here we are complaining about 45.
Oh,
I know. Yeah, but they're, so if they're stitching over 3 threads, it makes the stitches a little bigger. They must have had good eyesight and working in daylight.
Kids.
But, so some of those, like Jane Turner, I was able to then translate that so that it was only over 2 threads of linen.
Mm-hmm.
But they had their linen thread for the white work was way, way finer than what we can get nowadays. And the silk was generally finer as well.
Okay, so they're working with completely different threads from what we have today. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that changes the game some.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
really.
Because Beth and I were having a discussion about Jane Turner, because I tend to like to stitch on 40 count. Mm-hmm. And you did it on 35, and we agreed that to do it on any higher count with some of those stitches, they just become a jumble. You have
exactly.
To,
it gets too dense then. But if you did it over 3 threads on a higher count, the work would be, larger a bit. But you could do it that way. You just have to figure it out.
No.
Yeah, do your own graphing there, Gary.
No.
Well, not graphing, just figuring out count-wise what count linen it would be.
Right.
No.
Right. No.
No. 35 count's going to be just fine. Yeah.
It'll be perfect.
And actually, I think that might have been one of the first band samplers I did.
Oh.
Yeah, and I just love the colors in that piece.
Oh, it's a stunner. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And all the stitches. I think that's what intrigues me and calls me. It's like to do all the different types of stitching in one place. It just it makes my brain work, and I like that.
And I find that with a lot of the band samplers, they use a lot of different stitches, which makes them really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it doesn't get boring.
Yeah.
You do have to think, especially when they're supposed to be reversible, and you have to think what's going on the back at the same time while you're stitching.
Yeah, and I've tried to do one reversible, and as I tell people, it's almost reversible. It's not perfectly reversible, but it's almost reversible.
Well, good.
As good as I can get. As good as I can get.
Yeah, I've done enough of them that I just don't really have to, I sort of know what I'm doing.
Right.
when you go up or when you go down, okay, what do I have to do? Because, often there will have to be a compensating stitch in there.
Right.
If you're angling up or down.
Never again. Suck the fun right out of it for me. No,
you just want regular cross stitch.
This was one not Jane Turner level, but it's sophisticated enough, and I'd be cooking along, feeling pretty good, and then I'd forget. Wait, I got to worry about the backside too. It's like I just, yeah, two steps forward, one step back all the time.
Yeah.
Got frustrating.
Yeah. No, I get it, but it just sort of becomes automatic once you start.
Yeah.
It's just the way your brain starts to think about it.
No, not gonna happen.
Okay.
Yeah. You talked about museums kind of in the past tense. Do you do that still today, or have you gotten away from that?
I've gotten away from that. I've been working a lot. I don't know if you're familiar with Leslie Durst from antiquesamplers.org.
No.
And I'm able to reproduce. She's got a huge collection of samplers, and I have permission to reproduce whatever I want from her collection, which is wonderful. Like she's got over 700-800 samplers by now.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, from
Nice.
she's her main focus is Scottish, but she has a lot of American, English, Irish, Welsh, and then some miscellaneous from different countries.
So that's your sampler mine these days. Just keep
Yeah.
working your way through those.
Yeah, because with the ones in museums, I have to pay royalties on everything that I sell from them. And that starts to add up. And it's a lot of extra bookkeeping.
Yeah. I wondered about that because somewhere in there you mentioned about royalties, and so there's obviously the travel expense and time, and
Exactly.
then recognizing them every time you publish, and then is it a flat fee or do you pay per sale?
It's a percentage of each sale that I have of theirs, and then I send them a money order or a check once a year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Only fair, but yeah, it's a lot of extra book work. Yeah.
It is, and it's a lot of extra work. And I mean, let's face it, this needlework business is not a making money type of thing.
You're not rich. You're not.
No. It's paying the bills basically, but that's about it.
I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked.
And actually, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm discontinuing all the kits. It's just going to be charts from here on in.
Oh.
Because it's just getting to be such an issue getting the silks, and it takes forever. And then inevitably there's a color missing, or on back order, and then it's just and in the meantime, like I would buy my silk in 45-meter hanks, and then you only need 5 or 6 of those colors, or 5 or 6 of those strands, and then you're left with a bunch. So I've got a huge inventory. So I'm going to have a sale on silk.
All right.
So watch for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, it gets to be, I've got thousands of dollars tied up in silk, and it just, I use some of it, and then there's always, several colors that I don't have, so then I have to order them.
Right. And then the time, I think people don't realize how much time it takes to kit up like that.
Oh,
too.
yeah, it's huge. So I'd rather have people do their own kitting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like I know I had a sale earlier this year, and I've still got it's been 2 months, and I still haven't gotten the silks for some of these things. So I think it's getting ridiculous.
Oh, that's maddening too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and it's frustrating for the customers as well.
Right. Yeah.
So it'll be a lot.
All just charts, and then going to start working toward download.
Yeah, that'll be a little while down the road yet.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And my son and his family live in Texas actually, and they were up for spring break, and I said, well, I have to redo my will. He said, well, leave me the business. And so he wants to be involved, and he's always really been interested in the samplers. He wants all the samplers too, like the models and the antiques and everything.
Uh-huh.
And but he wants to keep it going. So.
Well, that's good to
nice.
hear.
Yeah.
Because we've had several shut down, and then it's all just lost. So
exactly. Yeah, no, and so he's a big proponent of having it all so that it can be downloaded, and then he wants to keep it going. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
So what countries do you want samplers from that you don't have?
Oh,
that's a long list, I can tell.
Well, I think, I don't know that all countries had sampler traditions. Mm-hmm. I know like Poland and that they had, I don't know, they have their fancy clothing with all the embroidery on it, but whether they did samplers or not, I have never come across any, so I don't know. And, Mexico has great samplers, and I would think possibly some of those, Guatemala or some of those South American countries might have some, but I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
And if they do have them, they would be fairly late in time, I think. And probably when the missionaries came.
Oh,
because they would, they brought, especially in Mexico too, it was missionaries that came over from Spain that brought these traditions with them for making samplers.
I've wondered if South America is kind of a great untapped needlework world.
I don't know. I've possibly. It's I don't know if it was more of a European tradition that make these things move across the world, and that nuns or missionaries or whatever brought these things with them. So I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to find out. You find out for me.
Okay.
Yeah. And let me know.
I'll do the hours of research. Okay, no problem.
But yeah, Mexico has great samplers, and they got wonderful stitches in there too, like the Aztec stitch and drawn work. But it was all brought from Spain, over by nuns and things that set up convents and schools there for girls.
Their cultures have such bright colors that yeah.
I always find I find that really interesting. I mean, where I live, I'd say half of the year it's blah outside, like it's the leaves are gone and it's brown, and then everybody has their houses painted beige and white, and I'm thinking, man, put some color on those houses. You get places in like Scotland and Newfoundland, they have really bright colored houses, and I'm thinking there's something to be said for that. It's lifts your spirits when you see color.
And in the Mexican samplers seem to have a lot of bright color in them, and I think those draw me because of the brightness that the girls used.
Exactly, and I think when you look at anything related to the tropics, it's all bright colors, and it's what they have around them as well. Maybe that's why everything is white and beige up here, because there's not a lot of bright color.
Yeah, that's the thing about samplers. When I was looking at the ones the charts we bought from you, the first thing I want to do is I want to put it on a lighter ground cloth, and really make those colors come out. I don't want to deal with that dingier looking cloth, and I know it's a look that people want, but
well, they're trying to make it so that it looks old, right?
Right. I don't want that.
Yeah, I mean, I've read of people distressing their samplers so much they drive over them with a car, and I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding, you're putting all this work on there. And it's never gonna look, well, I guess it might look like an antique, because I mean, you see some of them have been passed off as antiques.
Yeah.
Which is a real problem. And that when the girls actually stitched them, they didn't look like that. I find that's what I like about the Scottish samplers too. They generally have a lot of color on them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Lots of reds and greens and bright blues.
What do you know about the linen that was used in the 16 and 1700s? Was it just kind of a natural plant color? Did they bleach it?
No, it was, it would have been the natural color, but the linen, varies. Like even now, when we buy like a natural colored linen, they vary from year to year because it has a lot to do with the growing season. And so the colors come out differently. Like there are, but most of the samplers from the 1600s it was a lighter color linen. And I think that it was just the way it grew. Like a lot of the linen was grown in Belgium, and then during the war, because of all the bombing, the whole chemical structure of the land and the soil changed. So we've never been able to get that fine quality of linen anymore, or the colors. Like it's the linen just used to be way, way lighter. And I know, like I've looked at a lot of Dutch samplers too from the 16 and early 1700s, and they're all way, way lighter colored linen, but it was all hand woven.
And was the thread finer then too? I mean, like, could they get a finer, thinner, thinner, because they could? It was a better.
It was a better quality linen back then. It was just you could do finer. Like when I looked at the white work and the cut work in some of these early samplers, incredibly fine linen, almost like, I don't know, probably as fine as sewing thread, like that you sew on a sewing machine with, like a spool of that, if not finer. Wow. And it seemed to be a little stronger too, and I think because the fibers were longer, so it had more strength.
Why do we not get that these days? That's
partially I think because of the way they grow it nowadays, and where it's grown. Yeah, it just isn't as fine. Like I used to do a lot of weaving way back when, and I've woven linen thread, and I mean because where I am, it's so incredibly dry. The threads just break all the time.
Oh.
And I think when I look at linen, like in countries that were weaving it, like Netherlands, England, Belgium, and that, they're damper climates, so that would help make it stronger too. I guess you could try spraying it wet a lot, to keep the strength. But there seems to be more slubs and everything in the linen as well, compared to what they used to have.
Right. I just finished Trish Wynn's the first of her 17th century, and I was complaining. We were talking about it. We were trying to do the little picots,
right?
And you got a section of your linen thread that had a schlub in it, and you tried to pick it out, make it thinner. But if it hit where you were having one of those little picots, then your picot, and it just didn't look as nice. It just it was very, it looked like a big blob versus where if you had a nice, really thin piece of where the linen worked, they came out looking beautiful.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely makes a big yeah. And I just find, looking at those samplers from back then, I just don't see those slubs in there.
Right.
So I think it was just longer staple fiber that they had back then. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, but it's just interesting when you say that the stitching thread was finer than we get today, and the linen is finer with fewer slubs, and it just paints a whole different picture of needlework materials and the stitching experience.
Exactly. Yeah. It's it's quite interesting, I find. Yeah. And then later on, especially in England, they were using that wool tammy for stitching on, and then the moths get at it. And there's holes in it, but you can always tell. I find that really interesting because the fabric that they would stitch their sampler on would have a selvage on both sides, and it was quite often a blue thread or two blue threads, but that was the width of their linen, and so that's what they went with.
Yeah,
it wasn't like they were cutting a big hunk out of 56-inch wide linen.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder: are we actually moving ahead, or are we I mean, we have such an incredible resource of materials these days for
Mm-hmm.
needlework, and you know, I mean, you can't argue. A lot of the silks, like you use a Veriswa, I mean, that is just top notch silk. But I just wonder. I'd like, you know, some of the old stuff. How much better was it? Yeah.
Yeah, like with the like I've Veriswa, I find too, depending on the color, like some of the darker colors, I think the dye is really hard on them, and I've had, you know, black that will just shred away if I'm stitching with it. So then you got to use really short lengths, and I hate working with short lengths. Like I use the full meter because I hate finishing and starting ends. So when it starts to shred away after, you know, 6 inches, I get really frustrated. But it's the dyeing can be really hard on the silks.
Right. And black is a hard color to get.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
having dyed threads myself and trying to dye a true black, it's very difficult to get. And for me, just doing it at home, where I thought, I'll just leave it longer, or I'll, you know, I add extra dye in, and still didn't get a really deep black. Wow. And I'm sure it must degrade the fibers.
I think so. Like I've had it happen with some of the really, really dark green as well, that it would just, and there was also a rusty silk that I had from them that would just shred away. But it seems to be more prone with the dark colors. So I think it's got to be something with the dyeing. You know, maybe they do leave it in longer. I'm not sure.
Right. Or the chemical or the dye itself.
Exactly.
Has something in it.
Yeah. Now, going back to why we can't get the stuff, there is, like, if you're into Japanese embroidery, they have the silks from them, and it's all filament silk, which is absolutely gorgeous, and is, you know, it's right straight from the cocoons, and it's all dyed, and it's really long, but you got to then twist it yourself.
Yeah.
Which is quite a process. So, you know, and there are, you know, Veriswa or Soie d'Alger Access. They do sell filament silk, and but it's tricky to work with. But a lot of those early 17th century samplers, they did use filament silk as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder how much of what we do today, and this isn't going to come out right, but I'm going to try, how much of what we have today is, and laziness is not the word, but it's more convenience, because, I don't have to filament silk and I don't have to twist it myself. And just a different mental approach that we have today, and not laziness, but just,
no, but I think we're all we're more goal oriented. We want to get it done and get on to the next thing.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. We just I think, man, if you had to, although, you know, the people that do the Japanese embroidery, they seem to be okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
but when you do Japanese embroidery, you approach that with a whole different mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I had a friend that used to do a lot of it, but not something that appeals to me.
Me either.
Nope.
Yeah, that's amazing stuff.
And then I start thinking, too much time.
Yeah.
Right. You have to make a decision on where you want to. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, so it's like, okay,
exactly.
What do I want to work on? So how many samplers do you try to reproduce a year, or do you have any set goal?
I don't anymore. I used to probably do about, 6, 7. Lately, I've been doing good to get 1 or 2 done a year. And I've got a new one that's being worked on. And I've got one that I have to chart. I sort of tried these days to maybe get 2 done a year. I'm, to tell you the truth, I'm into abstract painting.
Oh.
and I do a lot of that. And it's just a real nice change from actually counting.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just more, I'm not reproducing something. It's something that's just, I can do.
Yeah.
But it's totally different. It's totally different. So, but I still enjoy it, and I'll keep doing it, but yeah, just less of it. And I think, I think I have over 200, so I'm thinking there's enough to choose from for a while.
Yeah.
But it always seems everybody wants the newest thing.
There's your new goal, Beth. Own all of Margriet's charts.
There you go. That's a worthwhile goal, because it's terrible looking through it's not terrible, but looking through your website is very bad for my pocketbook, as we've discussed before. It's just like, oh no, I gotta stop this. I'm gonna stop.
Well, you got to live long enough.
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Right. But just, you could, they say there's two sides of this hobby. There's the stitching side, where you actually reproduce it, and then there's the collecting side, where you have the charts and you can go and look through them and enjoy that. And
no, I've had people tell me that they just like looking through them and reading, the history and that type of thing. And, I don't always have information about the sampler maker, but when I do try to include that with on the title page.
Yeah.
Because I find that to me is always really interesting. And actually, I'm looking at some samplers right now, and they're all from Westtown School, and there's a girl there that did 5 samplers.
Wow.
And then her sister did one, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I might reproduce a few of those. And so we'll see.
A set. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd want to do all 5, because I know 2 of them, they were done on like this gauzy, real fine fabric that I can't get thread fine enough to do it, and my eyesight's not what it used to be either.
So she was the school overachiever then. Okay.
I think so.
That one, the valedictorian. Okay.
Yeah.
Either she loved it. She just loved stitching, like some of us, and just is like, okay, I feel best when I have a needle and a thread in my hand, and I can. This is what maybe she did terrible in her other subjects, but she loved to stitch.
Yeah.
There's the other part of the story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Couldn't add 2 and 2, but
yeah,
I can stitch.
Yeah, I'm actually giving a lecture on this Dutch orphanage sampler at the Schwenkfelder over Zoom, but there's one girl that she did 3 samplers. Like, she did the little red one, and then she did one more pictorial, and then she did a darning one. And it's not often that you come across somebody that did even 2 samplers, let alone 3. Or let alone 5.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you do lectures also.
I do. Yeah. And that, I've been, sometimes when I would teach at guilds, I would always do one. And then the last number of years, they've been all through Zoom, which is great. And, so I do them as a PowerPoint presentation.
What is this one coming up now that you're doing?
It's at the Schwenkfelder Museum in Pennsylvania. I think it's actually in April. Just look up, what is it? I'll have to look it up, and I can email you the link.
Yeah, I'd like to put that link in for people. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think if it's through Zoom, you can still sign up. I mean, then there's no limit of how many people can look at it.
Right. Oh, yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah, please do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. I'll do that after we're done here.
Yeah.
So.
Are there charts that you have in your catalog that year after year just keep selling, that standout charts?
Yeah, it's funny because I think after Margriet Hogue had been on, all of a sudden I got a whole bunch of new customers. And so they're ordering stuff that has been, Some of it's older, some of it's newer. It's so it sort of seems to cycle, I find. And I just sometimes I'm surprised. Oh, this one's selling again.
Yeah.
And then also if somebody posts something on one of the groups on Facebook, then all of a sudden, you think, oh, people are noticing it again or whatever.
Yeah.
And I make, do most of my announcing and stuff on my Assampler Facebook page.
Mm-hmm. So that's the place to stay current with your new charts.
Pretty much. Yeah. Because I also, excuse me, I'll post progress photos of pieces that are being worked on as well.
Yeah, Margriet Hogue, she, there could be some commission there because her work is just stunning, number one, and then
maybe I should get her as a model stitcher.
Yeah,
then I can maybe do more.
Yeah. And she's not afraid of anything. That's clear.
That's good. That's good.
Not at all. No.
Yeah. No. It's really interesting. I find I have quite a few repeat customers, and then all of a sudden you get some new ones, and then they keep coming back, and then some you never hear from again. Yeah. It makes you wonder, what happened to them?
So do we have new charts coming up?
Yeah, there's a Scottish one that's coming. That's getting there. It's almost done. And so, when I get it back, I'll make any corrections or whatever that's been found on the chart, and then photograph.
It's at the model stitchers then, so it's all.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but that'll be this, fairly soon. She said she's almost done.
Excellent. Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's a Scottish one. Nice colors, bright colors, and some in different stitches.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we love the different stitches.
Yeah, and quite often when I look at samplers, I do look if there's a variety of stitches in them. Although the last one that I came out with, Margriet Hogue, it's all it's pretty much all cross stitch, and it's been selling like crazy. But I think it's because of the motifs and stuff on there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's just really a charming sampler.
Okay, Margriet Hogue, I got to write that one down.
Yeah, and it's she'd be under this year's page, which has a lot of other stuff on it that isn't from this year. That's why I have to redo the website.
Yeah, I write that down. I want one with different stitches.
Yeah, there's only, I think. Go ahead.
I was going to say this. I think the reason why people are it has those those bunnies on it. Those.
Oh yeah, those huge rabbits.
Yes.
That are bigger than the house.
Yes.
That's what I love about some of those samplers is, some of the motifs, like the animals or the people, are way bigger than. It's so out of proportion. I just love that. It's so charming. It really makes it sort of folksy.
Hey, they were kids.
Yeah.
Just getting it done. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Margriet, thank you so much. This has been great fun, and
yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Probably cost us more money now. Here we go.
I know. It did. I've already written a few down.
All right.
That was bad.
Okay. Hey, keeps me in business, pays the bills.
Yep. All right, Margriet, thanks for doing this, and thanks to everyone for listening.
You're welcome,
Thank you.
and you guys have a great day. Bye.